Hi, I'm the Exceleer. This is TEXTO-001, the Exceleer Take On #1. In this video, I'll show you my take on the following topics: how I import multiple files from a folder, and how I unpack those files for subsequent processing. My goal is to do it in as few steps as possible, within reason, and make it as easy to use as possible for all involved. On the one hand, we have the end user who will be using the resulting dashboard, but who may not be familiar with Power Query. And on the other hand, we have the power user who has to maintain the dashboard and provide support. This video was inspired by Excel magic trick 1658 by Excelisfun. We'll use an exercise in this video with permission. Now, the Exceleer solution is constructed in 3 stages. First, we start off in Excel and do a small preparation. Then we go to Power Query. That's where the magic happens. And finally, we return to Excel to finish off the report in the dashboard. All right, let's go. Stage 1. So we start off in Excel by creating a new sheet, and we're going to call this input folder like so. And in here, for my ease of use for this video, I'm going to create a value list. And in this list, I'm going to list all the paths I'm going to use in this video. Let's pop up the Explorer window like so. We will be using 2 folders, the start folder and the finish folder. The start folder contains 2 input files, and the finish folder contains 3 input files. So 1 additional file, we can see the update. First, the start folder, copy, paste it, back to the Explorer, and the finish folder, copy and paste. Let's adjust the width here. Now, what we actually need for this dashboard to work is a small table. I'm going to put it up here, 1 column, 1 row. I'll call the column path, make it bold, and that 1 row contains the path to the folder that we're gonna start from. So I'll copy this and I'll paste the value there. All right. Now I'm gonna turn it into an official Excel table. Control T, enter, and immediately go to design and change the name of the table, because table 2 is not a good name. I'm just gonna call it table path, and while I'm at it, I'll remove banded rows as an option right there. Click into the file and check the path. Good to go. All right. Now that is it for this stage. The end user will be able to update this path easily. Just copy from here, or just copy it from your Explorer window and put it in this little table over here. All right. Now, one last thing I'm going to do is remove the grid lines to make it cleaner. So now we're ready to move on to the next stage. Stage 2, Power Query. So we open up the Power Query editor by pressing this button on the Quick Access toolbar, or CAT for short. By the way, by showing this Quick Access toolbar below the ribbon, that cat becomes quite a long walk from left to right. That's why I call it the catwalk. Hey, if Mike over at Excelisfun can have his angry rabbit, I can have my catwalk, alright? By the way, if you want me to make a video on that catwalk and how I stuffed it with goodies, just shoot me a comment below the video and I'll pick it up. Suffices to say that I'll be using it extensively throughout my videos because it's a time saver. Alright? Alright. We'll start off with a blank Power Query window. In the Queries pane over on the left, we right-click, New Query, Other Sources, Blank Query. Let's give it a proper name, proper data set, and enter. The first step will always be called source, and this is where the first magic trick happens. Let's type =Excel.CurrentWorkbook like that. Include the parentheses. Let's press enter and see what we get. A table with 2 columns and 2 rows, and there are 2 tables in the first column. We are only interested in the table in the first row that goes by the name of table path, right there. Then we want to descend all the way down and get that folder path down here that we just created in Excel and use that in another function. So it's an exercise in using arguments and the corresponding operators. Now these operators all have their proper fancy names. Go visit Excelisfun if you want to learn all about them. I'm going to simplify it by saying curly brackets stand for rows and square brackets stand for columns. First, we're going to reduce this initial table down to just a single cell. This table over here. So we want the row where the name column equals table path, and we don't want the full record of the first row, we just want the first column. That's column, and that goes by the name of content right there. At this point, we have reduced this table down to a single cell. And in any of the power tools, Power Query, Power Pivot, at that point something magical happens. That one cell will automatically be replaced by its contents. It will be unpacked automatically, if you will. And in this case, that means we'll get to the table on the next level down. Let's have a look. There it is. So our small table appears. Let's reduce it down to just the path. So we need the path column and we need the first row. So we type a 0. Gotcha there. Power Query is base 0, remember? Anyway, let's press enter. We should have just the string of our path. There it is. All right. So finally, for this first step, we wrap this in a function, and that function is called folder files. And it shows us the contents of that folder. Now this is a well-behaved folder, so we keep it simple and we do not robustify the query. I may do that in another video. We are only interested in the contents of the files. We can find it in the content column as binary files. Now because of that, we cannot get to the contents directly. So we need another step. So in step number 2, we extract the text files. In order to do that, we're going to use magic trick number 2, that is apply a function, but without having to rely on a custom function. First off, let's cheat and use the user interface to create a query that loads a single file. So, new source, file, text file. We're going to use this additional file. It's representative of our exercise, and just load it. So, the pop-up window shows us that everything is fine, looks fine. We're going to use these settings as presented here. Just press OK. We get a second query with just one step, the source step, and that is the formula that we want. It uses the function called csv.document, and especially specific to this case, these arguments. I'm going to copy that. And we can remove this query already, cover our tracks, and return to our proper data set. So let's add step number 2. Add column, custom column. Let's call it data. What function? csv.document. Open it up, get the content, because that's where the files are, of course, and then just simply paste the additional arguments. Everything looks perfect. We press OK. So now we have added a column all the way at the end here where the extracted data lives. Let's give it a proper name. Let's rename the step and call it extract text files, which is a good description in this case. Okay, the rest of the steps are easy, so let's do them in quick succession and return to Excel and prove to ourselves that those tricks in the first 2 steps actually work. Now step number 3 is we're only interested in the data column, so remove other columns. And I'm going to rename that step differently, like so. Remove unnecessary columns. Next, we're going to expand those tables. Make sure the prefix checkbox is unchecked because we don't want it. Okay. I rename the step. Next, we want to promote the headers here, so use first row as headers. Slight rename of the step. Next, we need to remove the redundant headers. There will be redundant headers because of the multiplicity of the files somewhere down the rows. Let's do it the following way. I double-click this title here, copy it. Then I'm going to use a text filter to say does not equal that value. Press OK. By doing that, I have not just filtered the rows, I have effectively removed the redundant headers. Rename the step. Next, we need to set the data types right. So I'll do it the following way. I select the last column, shift-click the first column, so I select all the columns. I go to Transform, Detect Data Types, and it did its job. It's always good to double check though. Text, date, text, whole numbers, and text looks perfect to me. Right, so I will rename that step more adequately, set all data types right. Now finally, for this exercise, in the work hours column, we're only interested in the negative numbers. So that's an easy filter. It should be less than 0. Click OK. And I'm going to rename that step, not filtered rows again, but keep negative work hours only. Just like that. Alright, we're done in Power Query. Now for stage 3, we close Power Query and we return to Excel. So Home, close and load 2. And we're going to choose Pivot Table Report, Existing Worksheet. We're going to put it on the Data Formula PT tab. I'm going to choose something like I-24. Click OK. Alright, the Queries and Connections pane I'm going to close. Enlarge this a little bit here. Now, in the fields list, we're going to choose transaction date and pull it to the columns, remove the quarters. We take description, move it to the columns. The name, we're going to move to the rows. The work hours, we move to values, and for this position, we're going to right click and add as a slicer. Right, we're done in that pane, so close the fields list. I'm going to move the slicer over here, just like so. Resize it just a little bit, like so. Now, in the pivot table, I right click in the values field and I'm going to summarize these values by the count. That's that. I'm going to right click again and go to the pivot table options and uncheck the auto fit option there. I don't like that. Next, I'm going to go to the design tab, subtotals, do not show the subtotals. Back to the pivot table and right click on the 2019 here, expand collapse and expand entire field, just like that. Let's resize the columns just a little bit there, like so. And we can compare with the table above. What do we see? We're missing a month here. So this is a very good opportunity to go and change that input folder. So we go to input folder, we're gonna select the finish folder, contains an extra file as we know from the beginning, copy that, and I will just paste the value there. You see, it was that simple. Return to the pivot table, right click, refresh, watch what happens. There you go. Let's resize it again, column wise, make it nice and beautiful like that. This position transfer, click, and there you go. Identical results, just like that. So, what do you think? Do you like these methods? Leave a comment below the video. In my experience, it's compact, efficient, and user-friendly on all levels. Where I work, we use it on a daily basis. Alright, well, see you next video.